Welcome to the Hunt, Fish, Travel podcast, a show that works really, really hard to interview folks that are going to provide you the information and inspiration for your next hunting or fishing trip. I am your hostess, Carrie Z. Before we jump into the show, I'd like to remind you that Spy Point is the show's biggest sponsor. They pretty much help me keep the lights on. Be sure to check out the Hunt, Fish, Travel Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for Trail Cam Tuesday picks. This episode is also brought to you by Montana Decoy, which is my secret weapon for bagging both turkeys and deer. Check them out at montanadecoy.com, and of course by both Costa Sunglasses and Radiance Outdoors. Each of them have sent me gear that I actually use. I live for my Costa sunglasses, let's be clear, and the fact that they'll put my prescription lenses in their polarized frames, let me tell you, that's a lifesaver. You can always check out huntfishtravel.com/huntingcabela's, no apostrophe, for a list of all the products that I've purchased to use this year. And new this year is the swag that I have for sale. How can you get your hands on a free t-shirt, you ask? Well, I am so glad that you asked. If you're listening on an Apple device, just go to Apple Podcasts, it used to be iTunes, or on Spotify and just leave me a 5-star review. At the end of each month, I'll draw a random winner from all the reviews from that month and send off a t-shirt. And remember to sign up for the newsletter that I pretty much never send out because I do choose monthly winners from that list as well. So really easy ways to get your hands on t-shirts and swag. You can always buy one too. You can go to huntfishtravel.com, go to the merch tab. All right, now that the business is out of the way, on to the interview. Welcome to the Hunt, Fish, Travel podcast. I am your hostess, Carrie Z. Super excited for this week's episode. We're going to talk some ice fishing. We're going to talk about a fishing app that's going to help you and me, I hope. I have questions, and Joe on the line has answers. So when we were chatting with the Omnia folks, we said, hey, let's get Joe Ponessa, the category manager for Omnia Fishing, on the line, and we are going to talk about the app, because I'm such a technology nerd, and that's really what I'm most excited and interested in. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited here to, as temperatures get colder and colder with every day, ice fishing is on the mind for us in the upper Midwest. So I'm excited to be here and talk some ice fishing and talk a little bit about Omnia Fishing's Premium Pro app.
Yeah. So tell the listeners where you are from and where Omnia Fishing is based out of.
Sure. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota, but Omnia Fishing is located in Golden Valley, Minnesota, so just about 15-20 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis. This is our second warehouse location. We had one that was actually just about a mile or so down the road. Any of your listeners, if they've ever been, they would remember that older location. We've moved to a much larger facility where we house a warehouse of over 20,000 products, and those all ship out from our warehouse right here in Golden Valley.
Wow. Okay, so I'm assuming you're going to be at the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show, which is this weekend. Well, hello.
Yeah, that's this weekend. Yep. We do plan to go there. We won't have a booth there. We won't be an exhibitor, but we do plan to attend the show 1 or 2 days probably.
All right. So being from Minnesota, then I can imagine that you have a favorite fishing spot. Like, do you have a favorite ice fishing area, or have you? I mean, it doesn't have to be obviously in Minnesota. You can say Wisconsin. It's fine. Or
Yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities. Like, that's one thing, being in this upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin area, we're really blessed with so many fishing opportunities, and that extends into the ice fishing season. And for myself, I grew up fishing more locally around the Twin Cities metro area, but, as far as favorite destinations for me, that's going to be, Lake Mille Lacs, early walleye, here coming in a few weeks, actually, once the ice is safe enough to start walking out from shore. It's some of the best walleye fishing of the year on Mille Lacs. And then also Upper Red Lake is phenomenal as well. And then my personal favorite will have to be, Lake of the Woods for sure in northern Minnesota on the border of Canada. That is probably my personal favorite, ice fishing destination in the, Wisconsin, Minnesota state area.
Yeah. The same. literally. And I didn't think I would love it as much as I did the first time I went there. I was like, this is badass, and I just kind of want to live here in the winter. The Lake of the Woods area, I don't know, they're awesome, and the folks up there are so nice. I'm working with finalizing the details for Rivers Bend Resort and the Lake of the Woods Tourism Bureau, and we're working on doing a giveaway at the Wisconsin Ice Expo for I think it's 3 days, 2 night, all-inclusive ice fishing for 4 people, which I think is so generous and so cool. And I'm like, oh my God, anybody who hasn't fished up there, that would be like a dream come true if you love ice fishing for sure.
Absolutely. And people, a lot of people who are kind of maybe new to ice fishing or maybe never done it much, is there's a really strong misconception that you're kind of just out on a bucket freezing to death every time you go. But this type of experience, like at Lake of the Woods, especially through a resort like that, you're getting really, top tier, they'll take you out to your ice house. They'll make sure that you have, snacks or lunch or all the bait you need. And once you're inside and set up and fishing, it's very comfortable. It's very warm. It's just a really fun experience, especially people who are kind of new to the outdoors, I would say.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's not like back in the day when we were growing up and, Dad took us out literally in the blaze orange jacket because it was the warmest thing in the closet on the bucket with some minnows.
Yep.
Times have changed a bit.
Very much. Yep. There's just so much technology nowadays to, helping anglers have more success on the water, and that's kind of loops in, where Omnia's Premium Pro app comes into the discussion too.
So Omnia Fishing is not just. So I was first introduced, obviously, at the Association of Great Lakes Outdoor Writers Conference in Bemidji, and the biggest thing that we talked about was the app. But it's not just an app. You guys are a store, like an online store, like Amazon, but for fishing, right?
Yeah, correct. We started, first and foremost, Omnia Fishing is a e-commerce tackle retailer. And we did kind of start, in that 2018 era, more honed in on the open water bass market, just because there's such a high volume of anglers and they do spend a lot of money. And it really came, unfolded into something great and big, especially during COVID, that huge boom. It was tough, for many, many people. COVID was very tough, but for the fishing industry, there was a huge growth that happened with so many new people getting into the sport, learning about fishing, wanting to spend time outdoors when everything else was kind of buttoned up and closed off. It was just really great, especially to be part of the company too, as that was going on. Is really exciting. And Omnia, we do have our Premium Pro app, which is we'll talk about that here shortly. But, first and foremost, we are, your tackle retailer with a goal of kind of giving anglers that in-store experience that they might have at like a Cabela's or Shields or any of our bigger competitors, but all in an online platform. You don't even have to leave the comfort of your own home.
Neat.
If you don't want to.
Yeah. Let's talk about the app a little bit. So you mentioned that there is a Premium Pro, but let's give an overview of what the app actually is and does, which is really exciting.
Yeah. So with the Omnia app itself is free, but to get the Premium Pro service, it's a $49 per year membership, and Pro members will have all sorts of unique information, kind of all congregated in one location. As anglers, one thing that a lot of us have is, you'll have an app on your phone for depth contours, an app on your phone for all of your weather and your wind, but this is really focusing all of that together in one location where you can stack those layers of your favorite lake or a lake you want to go check out for the first time. You can see things like bottom contours, bottom hardness, and vegetation. Those are going to be really important things, especially for ice fishermen. That bottom hardness and vegetation, at home, scouting out new lakes you want to go try, or maybe looking at a lake that you fished your entire life, just to kind of get a better lay of the land and kind of learn new areas to try when you go ice fishing. Because, one thing I know for sure is once you're out set up on the lake, and set up in your fish house or your portable, your hub, it's not always the easiest thing to move to a new spot, just like you would if you're in open water in a boat. You don't just turn the key and start driving away. There's so much effort involved with your setup and takedown that you want to maximize your time on the water. And we really think that Omnia Premium Pro and our layers on our map pages can really help anglers kind of narrow that search down and take all the guesswork out of, something that a lot of people think is, I guess, it's just fishing. It's not just fishing though. You can really kind of hone in your search and make it easier for you every time that you go out.
Tell me the difference between Omnia and Navionics.
So we actually we have the same mapping layers as Navionics. We are adding Navionics as a feature to the Premium Pro app. So anyone who's familiar with the Navionics mobile app, with those really great 1-foot contours, we will have that exact same feature on our app, in addition to all of the other things like the bottom hardness and vegetation, which can be kind of layered together to show you the bottom contours, which are Navionics driven, and then the things like bottom hardness and vegetation, which come from another source as well.
Awesome. I live on Navionics, I swear to God, all year long, whether it's on the boat or on the hard water.
Yep.
So that's really exciting, it's really exciting. Do you?
Yeah, and oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to kind of, retouch again on just, if people are interested, there is a free trial as well. It's not just, pay $59 and just then you see it to see. So you can sign up for a free trial to try these things out or kind of scout it out,
okay,
maybe for upcoming ice fishing season, or if you have a trip, between now and then even.
What are the Omnia rewards? So I see that as a part of the app.
Yep.
What are the rewards?
So Premium Pro members, they can earn, first of all, they get free shipping, and also that those premium rewards are a 10% back on their gear purchases. So if you purchase $100 of gear, you get $10 in rewards points that you can then use on a future order.
Oh, cool. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Your guys' website is really robust. I mean, there's everything from fishing reports, there's articles, there's tournaments. Do you guys sponsor a lot of tournaments? Oh, there's none for November.
On a local sense, we have, yes. Not so much on the ice fishing side. I know ice fishing tournaments are getting more and more popular every year, it seems like. We do sponsor a handful of more local summertime bass tournament trails. The Minnesota Bass Nation Team Trail is a pretty big one that's gotten pretty large in the last few years. Otherwise, we do, a handful of tournaments kind of regionally across the country and, selective areas where we're trying to hone and expand our markets. So we do a little bit of fishing tournament sponsorship, yeah.
Cool. All right. So say I'm like, all right, it's coming up on the end of, say, January. And I get a wild hair at my nose, and I've decided after this interview that I want to fish Mille Lacs Lake. And I have the app. Walk me through specifically how it would help me on Mille Lacs, say. So, like, I've already driven the 800 hours that it takes to get there from Milwaukee. But and I'm there. What's the first thing that I should do, really?
So the first thing that I would do, honestly, personally, I would reference OmniaFishing.com's fishing reports for Lake Mille Lacs for the winter and just kind of get a general lay of the land, types of depths that you're looking for or bottom compositions you're looking for. The thing with Mille Lacs is there's such a diversity of habitat out there in terms of for the walleye fishing. That's what most people fish for in the winter, at least there. And areas that are productive can be anything from the hardest rocky bottoms you can find to things like mud transitions. There's a lot of mud flats on Lake Mille Lacs, it's really famous for those as well, especially in the north and west side. And those mud flats can be very, very good that middle to late winter period for walleyes. So I would recommend, take a look at the Omnia Pro app. Look at the Omnia Fishing Lake Mille Lacs page for fishing reports, see what types of baits people are having success with, what colors, if they say how deep they're fishing, that's really important too. And then with our layering, you can kind of hone in on those mud flats in the central and northwest part of the lake and really get to see, the breaks off the side of them. You'll want to check things like the very tops of those mud flats and also the steepest breaks on the sides that can hold fish as well. Outside of that mud flat type of bite, there is going to be like that sand to rock transition, and that's where the bottom hardness or the bottom hardness and composition layer on the Premium Pro app can be super helpful, just to kind of find those areas where the bottom composition changes from like a medium softness sand to a very hard rock. Those can be super productive areas, especially for ice fishing on Mille Lacs.
Interesting. I'm looking. It's actually not a bazillion miles. It's not as far away as I thought it was. It's only 6 hours from Milwaukee. That's actually pretty close. Boy, I bet. Is it very pressured being so close to Minneapolis? Is it a very pressured lake? I would assume so. But it's a big lake.
It's very big, yep. And what's unique about Mille Lacs is a lot of, even some of those really deep basins in the central part of the lake, they still hold fish. So there's a lot of walleye habitat on that lake. It's really a true walleye factory when you look at the whole lake as a whole. And, being that it is like the most prominent walleye fishery within 2 hours of the Twin Cities metro area, it does get a lot of that pressure, wheelhouses from the cities coming up, and, it kind of becomes their like weekend retreat going up there to ice fish. And it really depends too on the type of weather we get. Like the last 2 winters have been kind of a little more on the sketchy side in terms of ice quality, just as a whole across the state of Minnesota. So a lot of that, traffic that would have gone to Mille Lacs the last couple of years, they end up going further to places like Red Lake, Winnebagosh, Lake of the Woods. So it kind of spreads that pressure out a little bit more. It really depends on how good the ice is for that first, month in December to get a good freeze so people can start taking their wheelhouses out.
And for the listeners, it's 133,000 acre lake. I mean, and that's 207 square miles. That's a big, big lake. That's a big lake, man. But it's only got a max depth of, it says 42 feet. So it's not a very deep lake. Well, I mean, I guess that's deep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. It's not 300 feet. Wow, how cool is
exactly.
this? I guess Mille Lacs has never been on my radar for some weird reason. I guess, and in all fairness, though, when you think of Minnesota, a lot of times you immediately think of Lake of the Woods, especially when it comes to ice fishing. So, this is super cool. What was your biggest fish taken out of Mille Lacs?
Of any species, probably like low 40s inch pike. I caught ice fishing a few years back. That was a pretty nice one, I would say. I mean,
I was going to say, you say that so nonchalantly.
Yeah, but I mean, Mille Lacs too. It's known for its open water muskie fishing. It has, they have state record caliber muskies in there. So a 40-inch pike compared to a 54-inch muskie is it's not as big of a fish, but in its own respect, it's a very, very big pike. Mille Lacs is just such a diverse fishery too, and it's a great open water fishery too.
How do you think? I don't know if this would really even pertain to the app, but say, would you use the app differently for fishing big water like Mille Lacs in comparison to a smaller body of water? It's, in my opinion, it is a very, we fish Lake Winnebago a lot. It's a whole other ball game than fishing Pewaukee Lake or, Pine Lake over here by me. It's handling and fishing big water is so different than smaller bodies of water. Is there a way to use the app other than the obvious of just looking at topography, but do you think there would be any tips or tricks to using the Omnia Fishing app that would help you handle a bigger parcel of water?
I would say I would almost put it in 2 different buckets with open water usage and ice fishing usage. Like, for example, with open water, the first thing my mind goes to is the wind layers. If you're on a huge lake like Lake Mille Lacs or Winnebago is a good example too. And let's say the wind is really blowing out of the north and you want to get up on the north end of the lake and find some areas that you can go fish on the north end of the lake because it won't be as windy. That's going to be a big time that the app will be helpful. Being able to mix that wind layer in addition to those bottom contours is going to be helpful to see, certain parts of the lake that won't be as windy as if you just, kind of shot from the hip and picked a random boat launch to go out of. as far as ice fishing goes, it seems like I would say, smaller bodies of water generally don't have as much structure, I would say. When you think of a small little pond or like a, small 40-acre lake, generally the amount of structure out there is not quite as diverse as a place like Mille Lacs, for example, where you have so many different types of structure from big points to small humps and all different types of bottom hardness in between. Being able to look at those bottom hardness contours or bottom hardness layers on a lake like Mille Lacs will help you find, different types of areas that you can target. Or on a really small lake, it'll kind of help you, narrow it down. Let's just say this lake is pretty featureless. There's a big bowl in the middle. That's where those crappies are going to be in the middle of winter, and to go check there right away.
Cool. Very cool. Just looking, there seems to be a lot of access, like launches and public access surrounding the lake, that it really seems like it's an easy lake to get on, whether with a boat or for ice fishing. And it also seems like there's a lot of charter services and fishing guides on the lake too. There's quite honestly, there seems like there's everything on this lake, whether you're like one of those people who you have minimal time and you want to hire a guide or whatever and stay at a fancy resort, or you want to camp and do a DIY trip or just go up there for the ice fishing weekend or whatever. It really does seem like it's a lake that offers a lot to a lot of different people.
That's very true. Especially too with ice fishing, a lot of the resorts, I guess that's one factor too that's important with, small lakes to big lakes. Those bigger lakes that have the system of resorts along the shoreline, they'll work together to have plowed roads that'll make it very easy for you if you want to take your own truck or your car out on the lake and find your own fishing spot and set up on your own. Or, a lot of places like, Lake of the Woods comes to mind. They'll take care of you from the second you walk in the door to the second you walk out. So there's an experience in ice fishing for every level of angler or even people who've never fished before.
Yeah. Very cool. What an exciting little lake, in Minnesota. That people.
An exciting lake in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll cut out the little part. People
there's
probably
plenty of options. If you're just looking for like wintertime ice fishing close to the cities, that's easy. Lake Minnetonka is a great choice. That's really close to the city. It's known for, summertime, like busy traffic kind of lake, but it presents some amazing fishing opportunities that kind of get overlooked, I would say. And as far outside of that, favorite little lake, it's definitely not a little lake, but it's definitely a favorite. I would say Lake Vermilion in northern Minnesota is beautiful. It has all of the resorts that you would expect, at other places up north, but it's very secluded and it's kind of got that, it's almost like a Boundary Waters type vibe to it just because it is so close to the access into the Boundary Waters. It's very pristine. It's beautiful there and the fishing is phenomenal.
Very, very cool. What do you think is the biggest complaint that people have in using your app? I'm sure people complain about something.
That's a good question.
Because then I'm going to ask you.
It kind of depends
what the answer is.
Yeah, that's a tough question. The biggest complaint about the app.
Because technology is technology is technology, and it doesn't always love
right.
us.
Yep. I would say.
I'm assuming that a lot of
hard
times.
to know. That's tough. To be honest, I don't really have an answer for you as far as the biggest complaint about the app. So hopefully
that's
good.
Answer. That's good. Yeah, that's actually really good. I would think that if there was ever going to be a complaint, it would have to be with connectivity, and that's not the app's fault. That's cellular towers.
Correct.
And stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be the one thing that people love most about the app? Like, what is the one thing when they come up, I love this app, and this is why?
It's a way for anglers to, one, find new fishing opportunities nearby that are exciting via the fishing reports access. But also, I would say one thing that is super cool is really diving into those map layers that we have for every lake. And, being able to identify what makes a certain body of water tick, I guess you could say. We have so many lakes here, but no two lakes are the same really. When you think about it, there's different ways that the fish behave, the depths are different, water clarity is different. There's so many factors. And being able to kind of unlock those little secrets to maybe it's your cabin lake that you've fished your whole life and you're kind of wondering, why do I always catch fish in that spot? Well, maybe you can see that there's a transition from hard bottom to soft bottom there, or something that's making those fish congregate. And it can kind of help you expand too and kind of, learn the body of water and find new areas that you can try. Fishing, it is a trial and error game, but the more that you can reduce the chance of error, the more success you'll have. So I really think that the app does a good job of that.
That is excellent. Cool. And I think that's a good bookend on the app.
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
Really cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show to talk about the app and to tell us a little more about Mille Lacs. That I'm literally, as we're talking about, looking at the calendar like, I wonder what weekend I could get up there. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great opportunity. I'd say, the whole month of December, once you have reliable ice, Mille Lacs can be an amazing, amazing walleye fishery. And thank you so much for having me. Anytime I can take out the day to talk about fishing or just the Omnia app, I'm happy to do it. So thank you for having me.